Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Right on Track podcast episode. What is it?
48.
48? My goodness, it's
48.
been a while.
You've been away for too long.
I have. You're listening to my docile voice yet again. This is the Right on Track podcast. My name is Tom Denham, but never fear, I'm never joined alone. To my left-hand side, I have...
Hello there, I am Connor Jonas, and to the right of Tom Denham, you've got the other Tom.
Tom Parry, yes, hello all. It's good to have the original gang of three back together. The Three Musketeers.
It's been a while.
Yes.
I apologise that I've been absent, but like anything, it's always good to be back.
Oh yeah, always.
Oh, thank you. It's always good to be here, and it's always great when we have another voice with us. You've got 4 people for 4 episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. Before we reveal our special guests, Parry, which episodes are we reviewing today?
Well, in today's episode of the Right on Track podcast, you can expect to hear us talking about 4 classic stories. They're always classic if they're the model series. And they are Jack Frost, Gordon Takes a Tumble, Percy's Chocolate Crunch, and Buffer Bother.
All of them are very memorable stories as well.
Series 6 in
Absolutely.
general is just memorable, I reckon. But Connor, would you be able to give us some light on who is this 4th person joining us today?
So we have been honoured and enlightened to have a very special guest host with us today. You may know them around the fandom because they are in charge of a very special project. It is Brandon Carty. Hello, Carty. Welcome to the Right on Track podcast.
Hello, good evening, good morning. I am the American here, and it is late for me. Thank you for all having me on here at these weird hours. It's a pleasure, really.
Let's start off with the beginning, which is what we do with every guest that we have here on the podcast. Carty, you're on here because you're a fan of Thomas. We're fans of Thomas. Where was the beginning of your journey by rail for you?
I had a particular tape that was the sing-along and stories tape, and my mom put it on. And there's video footage of this too, and I watched it recently. It was beautiful. I'm just sitting there mesmerized by the Island of Sodor song. And like I'm just hooked. You know, I'm sitting there sucking my thumb, just staring at it. Not sure what I'm watching, but I know that it's working for me. And so from there on, I remember my mom giving me like the Rusty to the Rescue tape and then going to see the Magic Railroad film. And it was just always there as a child. Like it was never something that I was not part of me. And for better or for worse, it stuck with me like a disease in the best way possible.
Yes. And we often find that a lot of these stories take place where it was something that was there right at the start of the childhood. But another pattern that we've noticed is often in the early teen years, sometimes people seem to drift away from Thomas before they return back to it. Did you find that occurred with you?
Mine happened, but in my early 20s. I dropped it a few years ago. I was a late bloomer in that regard. I dropped it to kind of focus on college and get hammered, you know, on the weekends and stuff like that. But then I realized I didn't enjoy doing that. So instead, for the last half of my college years, I spent time watching Thomas the Tank Engine. I realized this is much more fun than going to a frat party.
I got to ask, what was it like? Were there any particular elements of that, I guess, kind of love that you manifested that really beckoned the call back for you?
It all sort of is personified in the Cranky Bugs episode. You know, just one day you're sitting there and you're like, maybe I should just give this one more shot. You know, I've got all this Thomas stuff in my house and, you know, I can't really escape it. Let's entertain the idea for a second. I watch Cranky Bugs and then it's like, oh my God, I remember exactly why I love this. You know, it's the music, it's the narration, it's the sound effects, it's everything about that episode was just beautiful. And that's sort of what reinvigorated the spark.
And Brandon, sorry, do you go by Brandon or Carty?
So I go by Carty, and now it's great because I can just say I'm Cardi B, and people understand perfectly what my name is.
I love that.
Yeah, so I should mention everybody, I'm only just getting familiar with Brandon Carty because the other two have known him for months, if not years, and here I am just meeting him for the first time. So, Carty, we'll get into obviously more of the Thomas fandom in the moment, but I wanted to know how and when did you discover there was this huge worldwide Thomas fandom, and what inspired you to chase after it?
Well, so my parents did something really wise and did not monitor my internet access. And so I got exposed to the internet at a very young age, and I was on YouTube. YouTube had literally been out for maybe a few months at that. And there were Thomas videos already. Like, it was already happening. And I was like, what? And somehow, I don't know how I got down this route, but I found this website called TV.com. Which was an online forum where you could discuss, TV shows, and there was a Thomas the Tank Engine section, and here I am being, 7 or 8 years old, going like, oh, that episode was really cool. Duncan's my favorite character, blah, 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 blah. And then you realize, like, these people are a little older than me, and it's like, wait a minute, these aren't kids. These are adults that are talking about Thomas. And being the kid, I was like, I look up to these guys already. I want to join in on this. And then, you join the other forums, YouTube grows, and you just sort of cement yourself in this, I hate to use the word unlikely, but it was such an unlikely thing. You get cemented in the fandom because I don't know, it was like the moon aligned perfectly. And then here I am 14 years later.
Yeah, and we have some very sad news, of course. TV.com was taken off the internet only 4 months ago. So, yeah, it was around for quite a while, and it was the big thing back in the day, I remember, Carty. Everyone used to go on TV.com and talk about television, but of course now with social media and all that, it's kind of fallen by the wayside.
In the very early .com years of the internet, when it was a wild wasteland of whatever could occur. Now, Carty, you mentioned the episode Cranky Bugs, and I believe you mentioned that Duncan was your favorite character. Have you got any other favorite characters or favorite episodes?
Yeah, so Duncan, I do love Duncan because he's such a jerk, and I love that about characters. He's such a jerk to everybody. But my favorite character is actually Diesel 10. Because he was so scary and he was so new, and the Magic Road promotion is beautiful. In terms of other favorite episodes, one of them, and I'm really glad this is part of the discussion, is Percy's Chocolate Crunch. That I don't know what it is. I'm not the biggest Series 6 fan, but that episode is just so wholesome, and it got the Thomas formula right, to me at least.
And I got to touch on it whilst we're freshly talking about Magic Railroad. You're quite... I don't know, Parry and Connor seem to give me a lot of beef about the fact that I romanticize Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And you hold quite a strong love for it as well, don't you?
I do. It is... I can say this shamefully, but it is one of my favorite movies.
And I have one more request for you. Before we launch into the conversation, could I please get you to say the funny meme?
Don't do it.
Okay. This is the greatest day of my life, Tom. Thank you. I showed my friend your Thomas the Tank channel.
Yes! Yeah! Thank you. You've made me a very happy man. And with that, we're going to launch into our first episode that we're discussing on the podcast today. Connor, what is that episode?
You cold-hearted people. Well, on the topic of cold, we're going to be moving on to a freezing cold episode called Jack Frost, where James and Percy have been given a special job this winter's day.
That evening, the Fat Controller came to the shed.
"There's a big freeze coming tonight," he said. "James and Percy are to deliver extra coal to the stations."
"Yes, sir," they said eagerly, and the Fat Controller drove away. "You'd better hurry," teased Thomas, "or Scary Jack Frost might get you." "Who's Jack Frost?" Percy whistled nervously.
Don't be silly, sniffed James. Jack Frost is not scary.
Yes, he is, teased Thomas. He's all white with a big spiky face.
Rubbish.
Said James. James knew Jack Frost wasn't scary, but poor Percy wasn't so sure.
There we have it. Jack Frost, Series 6, episode Forgive My Bad Memory.
Is this a cue for me to bring up the fact?
Yes!
Okay, so Jack Frost, story by David Mitton, written by Paul Larson, of course in Series 6, is the 16th episode of the series. And it takes place on the blustery, cold winter's season on Sodor, which, frankly, looks so much better the last time that we saw Sodor in such a snow state, which was in Series 5 Snow. I remember I noted in Series 5 Snow how I hated the look of the snow, but here it's looking that touch better there. It's got so much detail, and it's got such amazing things about the detail of this, such as right in the opening B-roll, they've got my favorite shot of the episode of the fog upon the lake by the watermill.
Oh, gosh,
Oh,
yes.
it's crisp as ice, I say.
Connor, I have to pull you up on the fact there because we did cover a snow-laden episode only a couple of podcast episodes back.
I'm scratching my head to remember which one.
It's only snow. It's in the title.
Yes!
Is it that
Yes!
forgettable?
It was one of my favorite ones as well growing up.
Oh.
Dag nabbit.
Well, these
Okay.
past 3 weeks have not been kind to you, have they?
No, they haven't. It's been raining and horrible here. It's a bit wintry, despite we're going to summer. But the story of Jack Frost takes place on a very, very simple premise that you heard in the clip. Thomas has teased Percy and sort of James about scary Jack Frost whilst they're delivering their coal to all the stations. And whilst they're out and about the stations, Percy gives up the rest of his coal to the greedy Lower Sudbury station master. And then he waits in the siding overnight where he just gets covered in icicles and frost. James goes by, thinks he's Jack Frost, and gets very scared.
I want to point out something else there because the station master says that we'll need twice as much coal to last through this freeze, and Percy's just got this tiny bunker. I mean, I don't think that extra little bit of coal is really going to help them all that much.
You never know. Every bit goes a long way.
And you don't know how full that coal truck was.
It looked pretty full to me.
The one detail, I mentioned greedy station master. He is greedy because, like, first of all, wonderful job to Percy for giving up this coal. Good engine there.
Very noble of him.
All this coal would have been organised beforehand.
Yeah, so he would have got that last truck in the first place.
Yeah, and him asking for more is just greedy.
My
Horrid.
headcanon theory is simply that the station masters changed shifts because you wouldn't have the one station master do a 24-hour shift across the whole day. Second station master came in, wasn't briefed correctly on what was going on, and asked, "Oh, can I have this one?" And he's like, "You don't worry, you're getting it already."
Okay. But brief note on Lower Sudbury though, this is the last appearance of it.
No.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. Saw it all the way back in Series 1, and this is the last time we ever see it.
Well, anyway, moving on.
Yes.
So after Percy gets parked in a siding, he's left alone with only a lantern for company, and then the snow sets in. Actually, it's not really snow, it's more this really fierce blizzard. And that results in Percy?
Percival?
Percival!
Not for a few
It results
seasons.
in Percy being covered from cab to nose in icicles.
Quite frosty.
Yes.
Yep, that's it. And that's where the Jack Frost bit comes in.
Yes.
Sort of, in a way, ish.
Scary Jack Frost.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, growing up, whilst I am not afraid of Jack Frost, there's something very uncanny valley about the look of Percy there with all the spikes of the icicles going off him. And I can genuinely see how that was scary. And it's not a scary episode, but it does have that scary Jack Frost in it.
I think the thing that really did it, that I think sold it, was the lighting of Percy in this scene.
Yes, definitely.
They did something that hit
With
differently.
that lantern glowing underneath his face, yeah, that really, it's like putting a torch underneath your chin. It really freaks people out.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I don't know why people run away.
You've just like taped it to just under your chest, shining upwards the whole time.
Yeah, it's just always there
Anyways, yeah, just can't take it off. Now, I would like to say, Jack Frost is a real term, much like how you had the gremlins from Donald in Douglas in Percy and the Haunted Mine. The mythos mentioned here is based in reality. Because, of course, Jack Frost is a real European mythological figure who's a personification of snow, ice, and the freezing cold, a variant of the old man Winter, which can be traced all the way back to ancient Greek and Old World pagan beliefs and mythologies, specifically the ancient Greek god of Boreas, the Norse god of Uls, and the Celtic goddess Cailleach and Beira.
He's also
You've really gone above and beyond with your research here. I mean, that's just...
And furthermore,
Whoa.
I've researched how to pronounce these things. I'm getting better. Better.
Did you know, though?
Well done, you.
I've got one up on you. He's also the arch nemesis of Mr. Plow.
Oh, no.
And
he's also a detective on TV.
He is. So anyway.
So, before we throw any more references out there, what I feel this episode really excels in, though, and Carty, I feel you'll be able to agree with me here, is the beautiful shots and just filmmaking for the production of this entire episode.
Oh, yeah. The ambience, especially in the nighttime scenes, is really, really good. So it's like you said, having the warm light on Percy's face, having it be very dimly lit. And just the scene of Percy melting away from, all the ice melting off. I don't know why I find that really amusing. It's the simplest thing, and it's done so well.
It's satisfying.
Yeah. And it's also just a great aesthetic choice, having James go through the night like this bright red little train going through a white snowstorm. Aesthetically speaking, very nice.
There's specifically one shot of James that I love, and it is as soon as we see Percy in another haunted forest, it jumps to a shot of James mid-shot, high up on a hill, looking down into a valley. And when I see that shot of James pulling the coal trucks through the snow in the valley, I'm instantly reminded of Series 2.
One of my favorite shots as well.
Okay. All right.
Like, I get Ghost Train vibes from it.
Yes, yeah. Specifically because Series 2 had the massive valley in it. But I feel this episode, it excels in its shots, yet the whole thing feels very, very early classic series. Like, I could see this story being put into Series 2 or 3, let alone Series 6 now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, it's got a lot going for it. I mean, the Angelus narration, as we heard in the clip there, is just excellent. Again, peak Angelus, Series 6. The music as well, I think, as Carty was saying, it really helps to set up that ambiance and really set the mood, the spooky mood, if you will. And I especially love when James comes across Jack Frost and there's the harp strings playing. It sounds like someone's got their hand running back and forth against the harp. That's, just beautiful.
And we got to ask you, Carty, as well. You're probably more familiar with the Baldwin narration. Are there any particular notes or beats that you reckon hit particularly well or kind of sit a bit differently for you?
Yeah, Alec Baldwin in season 6 is a real mixed bag, and in this episode, it's kind of lackluster. Namely the scary Jack Frost.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, like obviously, I grew up with Alec Baldwin. I really had no idea who Angelus was for a long time. But when I do watch season 6, I have to watch it with Angelus. It's the only way to do it. And in this episode, it's like you guys say, it really is the peak of Angelus here. Not in season 7, but season 6, he is just so on it in terms of delivery and like timing
and
in this
energy.
episode. Oh my god, yeah! This episode is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of particular things I love about this story, in the sense that some of my favorite shots, I think, are those beautiful night shots, and it almost kind of feels like an extension of episodes like Stepney Gets Lost and Oliver's Fine, where we have those nighttime shots in the forest, or like Haunted Henry, where we have those nighttime shots, but we kind of get this combination of the snow episodes and the spooky episodes, and that's something I think in my like childhood mind I really wanted. Like I didn't know that I wanted it until I saw it, and I think having those two worlds cross-pollinate with one another was really lovely.
One thing I really do appreciate with this episode, though, is how James and Percy both seem to lose, if that makes sense. But
The only person who wins in this is Thomas.
Yeah, really. But because James, of course, has been scared by Percy as scary Jack Frost. But then Percy has been covered in freezing cold overnight, all by himself, literally frozen to the core. But it still has the happy ending, and it feels it's got a humble ending where, yep, we've both lost. Bravo. However, I don't know why James is whistling at the end happily.
Because he realised what the joke is? I don't know.
His driver was whistle happy.
Fair. As the ending goes, Percy's arrived back at Tidmouth Sheds. James is talking about how he saw scary Jack Frost last night, and he even knows his name. And Percy chimes in going, and he also knows that you ran away. Then everyone laughs and blows their whistles, including James. In any other story, if that were to occur, James would be annoyed that he's been called out.
He would. It seems very out of character for him to be like, oh, good one. Yes. Oh, I see it now.
It's probably like the lack of sleep.
Yeah, lack of sleep. Yeah,
it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm not going to argue this one.
Yeah, possibly.
Shall we go to
So I
ratings?
think it's time for, the ratings for this particular story, and I'll lead because I'm keen. Let's settle on an 8 out of 10. It's got great set design. Of course, the snowy settings are just beautiful, as always. Great music, great narration, and it's a really fun story. So, Connor, what are your thoughts?
I can only echo everything you've said. Again, an 8 from me. It's got beautiful sets, lighting, music, and it's so reminiscent of the early series with a lot of the shots and narration that I just can't help but love from it. So, yeah, 8 from me. Denham.
Whoa, Connor. I think I don't know why I did that. I think it's a 7 from me. Like it's very, very lovely in the sense that there's a lot of different kind of subtle nuances going on, but at the same time, like, it's not an episode that I jump to in a heartbeat to watch straight away. But whenever I come back to it, like, I still have a good time with it.
And that only leaves you, Carty.
I don't want to be a buzzkill, but I want to give it a 6 out of 10.
That's fair.
I
would justify.
Hold on, Connor, if we did something like that, you'd be at our throats. I mean, what is this new personality you've suddenly co-opted?
He's maturing.
I'm getting on the nice side of Carty, you know? Carty, justify.
There are a lot of great winter episodes, from 1 to 5. Season 6's winter episodes never hit it right for me. Despite like the cool visuals and the great music, there are some inconsistencies, like James sort of being in on the joke at the end, because he would never admit defeat like that. And it's just when you factor in like the poor dubbing on Alec Baldwin's behalf, it just sort of comes out as a lackluster ish episode for me. But that's just me.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Justified, as you did.
So whilst Parry, Denham, and I, we've all sort of ranked it quite high, your score's sort of taken a tumble, which leads us to our next episode. Gordon Takes a Tumble, where there's been a fair amount. You see, this is what I do. Fair amount of work backed up at the docks, and so Topham Hatt needs some engines to very quickly clear all the goods.
That evening, fog covered the island of Sodor. Everything slowed down, and soon the docks were packed with waiting trucks. This caused confusion and delay. The fat controller came to the sheds. He was in a great hurry.
Henry, Thomas, and Percy, he said, you must go to the docks immediately.
Yes, sir, they whistled. Then the fat controller turned to the big blue engine.
You too, Gordon, he said. I need a big engine to take the trucks where they won't be in the way. Trucks!
Puffed Gordon. He could not believe what he had heard.
We did mention before when talking about Jack Frost how it felt like a early Thomas story, and I'm getting that same vibe here from this clip because of course Gordon in the very early stories couldn't stand trucks. He was very much a coach's engine. He wouldn't have anything to do with goods trains, and now we're seeing history repeat itself here.
Yes, that's so true. And that's even echoed at the very, very start of the episode, which begins with all the engines talking about what they do. And then it talks about how Salty is teasing Gordon about not pulling trucks.
Yes.
So in this episode, as we mentioned, Gordon gives Salty some beef, and Salty gives Gordon some beef back. And Gordon is happened upon a goods train that he has to pull through the night. He ends up going down a branch line which he shouldn't go down, and as the title suggests, he takes a tumble.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Not only does he take a tumble, but he takes a tumble, a roll, a hit, a roll, a smash, a hit, a roll, a crash, and a bash.
Is this Gordon's biggest accident, period?
It is. It is not only one of Gordon's biggest accidents, it is one of the most spectacular crashes of any engine in the history of the program.
I would argue that it is the most exaggerated and glorified accident, because the narration simply goes, Gordon fell off the line. And then it's just purely the sound and the visuals where you see Gordon see a pile of hay, hit, pile of old tires, hit, losing his tender, through a barn door, through the other side, crashing into a field in front of a shrugging scarecrow.
How much involvement did David Midden have in this episode?
I would say quite a lot.
Yeah,
knowing
it doesn't surprise me.
What we've heard from our guests on the podcast, he would have had quite a large say in this crash.
Yes. However, not as many explosions.
No, that's true, actually.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know what
dust.
happened between series 5 and 6, but I don't know. Someone probably said, no more. And I went, oh, okay. And then snuck things in there.
No fire.
Yeah.
No fire.
No more gunpowder.
But yes, it's... This story is weird because if you were to describe it, it's simply Gordon doesn't like taking trucks. He takes trucks. He has an accident. He's been taken down a few notches. And although he isn't as dingy fried as he is before.
Dignified.
But It's a very simple story. However, it's a very simple story. However, it is done so well.
It's a very visual story, I reckon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very visual would be the way to describe it, especially with the shots at night, both at Tidmouth and especially at the docks.
Can we just address the elephant in the room quickly before we move on?
Hey, are you calling me fat?
Not you directly.
Oh, okay.
I'm referring to, of course, the person who is responsible for this accident, and it's not Gordon. Connor?
Well, Gordon is partially responsible. He chose to ignore the go slow sign, but
He shouldn't have been on that line in the first place. He wouldn't have had to go slow if he hadn't have been diverted by...
the signalman.
Ah, here we go. Back to his old tricks.
The infamous return in disgrace of Sodor's most reluctant and incompetent workers.
Well, this one is particularly incompetent because he's just sitting down, having a cup of tea, and then he hears the train goes past, and then he goes, "Oh no, I've sent him down the wrong line."
Then it's the other signalman's job.
His job.
It's
They're very sleep-deprived people.
You could, not only could you blame this signalman, but you could blame the signalman previously down the line, because Denham, you should be able to echo this here. A lot of the time when signalmen are talking about the blocks and where the engines are going, they will call up the one down the line and go, "Are you ready to receive this engine?"
What engine?
Exactly. And then they'll go and crash.
Yeah.
So
another day on the island of Sodor.
Either they're unable to communicate, or they're just not communicating at all, which is horrid for this profession.
It's every signalman for himself.
Maybe all the signalmen are having a beef. Maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah.
I am not on speaking terms with you, Jerry.
He doesn't even go
Connor
here.
Just did a hair flip there, and of course you couldn't see it, listeners. But yeah, it was spectacular.
Thank you.
Carty, do you have any? I was going to say, Carty, do you have any remarks or thoughts about this particular story?
I think I would have paid a lot of money to have just seen the engines work a night shift at the docks.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's the way that they shoot that is so nice. I don't know, it's such like the fog. Imagine Salty Thomas and Gordon just like going crazy for like a night at the docks. Perfect episode material.
There's specifically one shot that feels very series 2 to me, and that is when you just see Gordon's tender and then his train slowly being shunted up behind him.
Oh yes.
And normally in the show, at this point definitely, the engine's just back onto their trains, and you very rarely see the trains being shunted up to them. And having that done here with, as you said, the mist, Carty, is brilliant. It is amazing. But I do have a major issue with this episode, though, and that is the ending.
Oh, yeah, it's a similar thing with Jack Frost, isn't it? How Gordon's just like, "Oh, well, I messed up.
Yeah,
Silly me."
Not only is it, messed up, and then again, everyone whistles. But as Gordon is there with the passenger train again, Thomas, it's a very forced Thomas entry, I feel, with him going the moral, everyone makes mistakes sometimes, or everyone has accidents. Like, Salty would have been so much better in that role there, considering how most of that story revolved around an argument between Gordon and Salty.
You're quite right.
However, on the inverse note, though, I do like Salty not being there for the fact that it's James saying Salty says he's sorry. Because that feels very realistic, especially in a professional environment where people are going backwards and forwards all the time. But then again, James wasn't even involved in the story at all until that point. So the ending's got a very weird question mark around it.
It does feel like a bit of a common theme in Series 6 episodes that we do have these endings that don't feel completely resolute.
Exactly, yeah. They're more so endings to just make sure everyone's happy and the end.
It's kind of like, oh, I guess we're all here then, and shrug, and then there's the sitcom laughter, and then it ends.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It has me pining for the Audrey stories where, something went wrong or someone was at fault. It just left it there. Like domeless engines, for instance. Never trust domeless engines. They aren't respectable. And then it just ends. Like,
Yeah.
Sometimes those
Or
are some of the
you
best endings, I reckon.
Get episodes such as Percy Takes the Plunge, where it ends with Percy being carted away to the works.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have a detail about this episode here, though, and that is one of the 6 episodes re-narrated by both Michael Angelis and Alec Baldwin, and then also recomposed with music by Robert Hartshorne.
Oh God.
Oh no.
Hold on. So it was re-narrated and recomposed. I haven't heard this. How does that work?
So, the basic detail of it all is that I believe come a re-release, a bunch of episodes were re-released a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was that they got, not Alec Baldwin, Michael Brandon,
Okay.
and Michael Angelis re-narrated these episodes. And then, because at this time everything was on separate tracks, unlike in the early days when the narration and the music was sort of all merged into one, at this point, narration was on one track, sound effects on another, and music on its own. And they got Robert Hartshorne to recompose a bunch of music in the episode, or at least just threw Robert Hartshorne's music in instead. One of only 6 episodes in the 6th series that had that done to it.
Okay. Are we sure that George Lucas didn't produce season 6?
I would like to think there's just a whole archive of Michael Brandon Series 6 out there, and I hope someone destroys it one day. That is a thing that should not exist.
Let's hold up a lighter to it as it slowly disintegrates.
Okay. I don't like encouraging destruction of property with fire, okay? As my parents say when they talk about me, that's arson.
I think this is an opportune time to come to the scores, don't we all think?
I believe so as well. And because I'm on fire with these puns today, I'm going to start off. And I'll go, I've loved the shots in Jack Frost, and I really love the early shots in this episode, especially the late night ones and the discussion with Salty at the docks. It is brilliant. I feel the visuals take a little bit of a drop once we see Gordon on the line in the day with his goods. However, that's made up for with one of the most spectacular crashes in the show. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Rightio. I'm leaning towards your score, Connor, but I'm going to give it slightly less. I'm gunning for a 7 out of 10 because everything is essentially framed around the crash, and the crash is spectacular, but everything else is kind of ordinary. So, yeah, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think this. I enjoy it when I watch it, but I'm left always feeling quite Moorish with some Series 6 episodes, and this one in particular. I think the ending is like, with a second rewrite, could have been better. And Carty, I love what you said about having like a whole nighttime aesthetic episode. Kind of like what we have with Jack Frost, but at the docks, like with Thomas, Salty, and Gordon and Henry. Like, that idea for an episode, I think, excites me more. But I think, like, I don't know, it feels like there's a lot of pandemonium visual stimulus, but not enough, I guess, meaty dialogue. And I think sometimes one of the things I love about these episodes is the narration and the storytelling and the dialogue. And I think that's always, like, has been one of the big factors of a good Thomas story. And I think that spark of magic isn't quite there. However, the visuals kind of hold up. So I'm leaning towards a 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we've just got Carty left. Carty, you've listened to all our comments. What is your score for this story?
I want to say 7. I think 7 because of the visuals to me are really, really great here.
Mm-hmm.
The crash, of course, is, it's the crash. It's beautiful.
Yes.
But it's like everyone's been saying, is it's kind of like going to a restaurant and eating all carbs, like all bread. You feel full for a minute, but then like an hour later, you're like, wait a minute, I'm hungry again. Like you don't. If the ending were better, I think this could easily be a 9.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's an excellent analogy too. A restaurant that only serves bread. We should use that more often.
We should. We really should. But I'm afraid we're at that time in the episode right now where we move on to our musical interlude. And this week I have chosen something that I've been bopping along to throughout the week. It is a cover by StarTom, the Thomasified version of Home Resonance by Earth, Wind and Fire.
That was StarTom's Thomasified cover of Resonance, one of the all-time great vaporwave tunes. There is actually a great Simpsons compilation of the best animated bits, which also pairs that piece of music together, and that is wonderful. You should definitely check that out. But we're not here to talk about The Simpsons. We are here to talk about Thomas the Tank Engine and friends, because, of course, this is the Right on Track podcast. We've got our special guest, Brandon Carty, with us on this episode. So far, we've talked about Gordon Takes a Tumble and Jack Frost, and now we're moving on to another special story. Denham, what have we got up next?
We got a great episode coming up that we're going to talk about, and one of the reasons why, Carty, you're joining us today, it is Percy's Chocolate Crunch. And in the clip that we're going to play, Percy is having a bit of gander with the rest of the engines about why washdowns are important.
Percy often has the dirtiest work to do, but he likes to be clean as well as any other engine. So washdowns are important to Percy. But the Fat Controller had bad news. Due to a water shortage, he said, no engine shall have more than one washdown a day. Usefulness before cleanliness, he added, and left. Percy was upset. I get dirty, he complained. I need washdowns. Gordon only does it to feel important. I am important, Gordon sniffed. I'm an express engine. You're a pouty puffer, Percy, teased James. No, I'm not, wheezed Percy, and he chuffed away.
So, as our special guest, Carty, it will be rude not to ask you what happens in Percy's Chocolate Crunch.
So, in typical fashion, Percy just cannot catch a break anymore. He's doing all these dirty jobs and wants a washdown. There's a shortage, and of course, he can't get it because the other engines are bigger than him and are more important. So he goes to the coaling plant once again, trying not to get dirty. But unfortunately, he encounters Harold, who also gets him even more filthy. When you think about it, like, everyone's just being a total jerk to Percy. Poor guy. But yeah, so he's covered in dust, grime, and dirt, and everything. And so he's on his way with these trucks that he's going to take to Mr. Jolly's chocolate factory. And on his way, the rails for inexplicably are covered. What is it? It's oil?
Yeah, so a leaky truck had dripped oil onto the track. Okay. What sort of oil, we don't know, but it's enough to, obviously make Percy not stop.
It would have to be like olive oil or something. Something that would need to be on that siding.
It was an olive oil truck.
The olive oil railway.
It was enough for no one to notice and think, yeah, that won't be an issue later. No big deal. What could go wrong? And so Percy is, just minding his own business, slips on the oil, and quite possibly kills people. This is not confirmed, by the way. The toll was never accounted for.
No.
So he just slides through this chocolate factory and comes out. What do they call him? Bon Percy.
So in the Michael Angelis dub, it's you look good enough to eat, Pudding Percy, Chalk Ice on Wheels, and Gordon, of course, thinks it's disgraceful because that's all he can say at this point.
Yes, but in the US dub, instead of saying Pudding Percy, James says Bon Percy.
Okay. So yeah, Percy is covered, and we unfortunately sort of get the same thing again with these Series 6 endings where everyone's back at the sheds, everyone's so happy, everyone whistles, and then it's sort of this happy-go-lucky ending, and Percy gets exactly what he wants finally, which is a washdown and a new coat of paint. So you at least get what Percy gets what he wants, what he was after. So that's, happy enough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, he proved the point. It's that hard work comes before, cleanliness, for want of a better phrase. I'd just like to point something out as well. Gordon's character is a complete reversal of his temperament in a Series 3 story, The Trouble with Mud. If we all bring our minds back to that, Gordon says, I've got no time to have washdowns. I'm an express engine. I don't need to be clean all the time. And now here he's saying, hold on, I need to be clean. I'm an express engine. It's like, come on, pick a side, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got, that's my major issue with this episode. Not necessarily Gordon, but the entire idea of engines having washdowns. Because, as Sir Topham says, that there's been a water shortage, so they can only have one washdown a day. Now, here, Parry, Denham, and I, we're all Australians. We're fine with water shortages. We're used to them in the summer. However, taking more than one washdown a day for a railway engine is already excessive. Way back in the day, the general washing of steam locomotives was done whenever it was convenient, but more often than not at the end of the day's work. So having them being washed 2 or 3 times throughout the day on the regular is super excessive.
Yeah, no wonder Sodor has a water shortage.
Yes, exactly. I feel if they went, okay, yeah, you're not allowed to have washdowns full stop, you know, or you're not allowed to have washdowns until the water shortage is over, I would be fine with that. And then everyone can have a bit of an argument about it, or everyone is a bit laissez-faire about it, and it would bring Gordon back to his Series 3 character of, you know, cleanliness over function and whatnot. Except here we get the not only inaccurate facts and figures, which you guys know that I greatly dislike that, but you've also got the reversal of Gordon's character. But on the note of facts and figures, though, I should note Percy's Chocolate Crunch, 18th episode of the 6th series, story by David Metton, and written by Brian Truman.
There we are. Yes. Well, I mean, again, much like Gordon Takes a Tumble, I think everything is leading up to this huge accident, because after all, the story is called Percy's Chocolate Crunch, and it's really unfathomable in a way as to how an engine could shoot into a chocolate factory at one end and come out the other end absolutely drenched in chocolate. I mean, as Carty said, someone probably died. I mean, it's not like, you know, Sugar Rush or something like that, where you just have everything dumped on top of you. You know, you'd have to go through like machinery and all sorts of other things in order to get to the other side. A chocolate vat, you say, Denham?
Yeah.
You'd have that in a chocolate
we also
factory.
Need to consider. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Considering that we are in the roughly 1950s, 1960s, you know, between 40s to 60s era, you know, mass automation of products was only just starting to take over, which means that a lot of the time these factories would just have plenty of workers there lined up.
And also the idea that, you know, when Percy reaches the other end, he's covered in chocolate. You know, it's not like a car manufacturing plant where you do everything on a single assembly line from beginning to end. You know, I've been to a chocolate factory, the Cadbury chocolate factory, no less.
Did you get a golden ticket?
No, I didn't get a golden ticket, but I had to pay the equivalent of one in order to get in and do the tour. But anyway,
did you survive?
Yeah, so when we did survive, yes, I'm sorry to say that Cadbury's chocolate factories are not as exciting as Willy Wonka's, but anyhow, when we did the tour, basically everything was all over the place. So in level 3 of the northern wing of the building, you'd have where they churn the cocoa butter, and in level 2 at the eastern part, they had the packaging and all that. So yeah, it's not just a singular long assembly line of them manufacturing chocolate bars. So yeah. I don't know where I was going with this, but the point is that it's kind of illogical to think that Percy would come out of the other end of a chocolate factory covered in chocolate and only chocolate.
With no other metal or debris on him.
Correct.
But I will say what this episode does. I wouldn't say it does show don't tell, because but it does. It shows the accident without showing the accident.
It does. True.
Yeah.
You see Percy crash into the building. You see him come out the other side, and in between those two shots, you just have a continuous spurt of cocoa powder through each of the windows on the chocolate factory, and that it's a very humorous way to go. He's hit something there. He's hit something there. He's hit something there and there and there.
And of course, I've got the sound effects that go along with it, like the clank and the and all that.
Exactly. The only way, because they don't say luckily no one was hurt. They don't say that.
They're true.
The only way that I feel that it makes sense to have minimal debris, minimum casualties, and maximum mess would be if Percy was actually crashing through a like storage area where they have got like the boxes of the sugar and the materials, because he was going to a platform anyways to deliver some stuff. So it would make sense if the storage area was near the unloading platform. And that way you would get maximum mess with minimum casualties of the accident.
Yes. Very eloquently put, Connor.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now,
have you got any other fun facts for us, Connor, or have we just about covered it all?
No. I do have fun facts. You know, I always have fun facts.
Yes.
And pedantic comments such as this is horrible placement for the building, because if you thought that the series 2 lollipop stick buffers were bad, this is worse, because at the bottom of an obviously steep hill, they have got the big factory where they obviously have got very heavy goods that need to go there. It was originally going to be called Puff Puff Pastry.
So he ran into a pie factory.
Maybe. But the one thing that I really like with Series 6 is they've brought back background movement. In Series 5, whenever you saw a train move, you would see the engine. But here, much like in very early Series 1 and 2, a little bit of 3, you will just see in the background a slow-moving goods train or something. Just adds that little bit more realism. But I do have a question. And this question has been asked thousands of times without a definitive answer.
Right.
In the real world, what did they coat Percy with?
I'd say maybe like resin, potentially.
A thin brown resin, maybe. Parry, theories?
That ice magic stuff that used to be really popular with kids. You know, the chocolate sauce that you'd sprinkle on top of your ice cream and it would set on top of the ice cream, and that was really cool.
And forevermore, the motto of Percy just smelt like chocolate.
Okay, maybe it wasn't chocolate then.
The only thing that I can think of would be brown paint with like a kind of varnish over it.
Oh, that's a possibility, yes.
But Carty, as this is your favorite episode, I'm going to assume you've thought about this a few times as well.
I would really like to think one of the model makers is like, let's just melt some chocolate. Like, why do we want to? Why are we putting a bunch? It's a kids show. It's when you look at it, like it's kind of shiny too. Like it looks like actual chocolate. I hope that's not what they did though.
It looks like actual liquid wet chocolate.
And then by the time he gets back to the sheds, it's like caked on him and like
dry.
Sort of changed. But then it's wet and like the next shot, it's really weird. I don't know.
Yes,
I want the brown Percy face mask. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's a good point to make actually, because if chocolate actually fell on top of a steam engine, you know, it would set and it would go rock hard, or it would melt off. Hold on, what would it do actually? Okay, so it's the boiler. Hold on, so it's really hot. So that stands to reason that it would probably melt away.
However, as the engine cools down, because obviously it's had an accident, they're going to put out fire. eventually that chocolate would eventually start setting.
Okay.
Or it could be, have you guys ever tried to actually cook chocolate before? Not melt it, cook it.
Yeah.
Like you can burn chocolate.
Yeah, I've
okay.
Burn it
done that
solid.
before. There you
But
go.
that's all my theories and facts about it, which leads to only one more definitive fact to give out, and that is our rankings.
Good one, Connor. Well, let's start with Carty, actually, because this, of course, is one of his favourites. So set the tone for us, Carty.
Okay, I'm gonna preface this by I'm fully blinded by nostalgia, but I'm gonna say a solid 10 out of 10 on this one because I love this episode. I'm not the biggest Series 6 fan, but there is something about this episode that is just so it's not classic Thomas. I mean, and it is, but it's a very out there story, but it's done so well and so crazy. The crash is not as crazy as like Gordon Takes a Tumble, but I feel like this crash is more memorable because it's what you don't see.
Yes, your imagination. Okay, so you've given it a 10. The accident, what you don't see, is very good. I love the establishment of Percy doing all the dirty jobs, very much as he was doing in Series 5 and it was all put upon him. However, I feel that the ending, the comment of, wash down coat of paint, you'll be good as new. Whilst he is happy, it's like, it does feel very hollow to me. So I'm going to give it not quite a 9, not quite an 8.5. So I'm going to go 8.75.
Okay.
All right.
Well then. That just leaves me then, and Denham. So I'll take the bullet. Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot going for us, this story. It's got great narration, of course. I enjoy the music and the little ditties there, the set decoration, cinematography, all the rest of it. But yeah, as a story, it's not really one that I gravitate towards. So I would lean towards a 7 out of 10.
Valid.
Denham?
Yeah. I think there's something about this episode that, I don't know, it kind of beats to the drum in a very different rhythm from what a lot of other Series 6 episodes do. One other little subtle thing that I do love about, I guess, Series 6 in general, like, I think Duck has now become, like, the Fat Controller's service engine, who, like, is always the one present at the turntable with the Fat Controller or doing his bidding. I don't know. I kind of enjoy that in this season. It's kind of like a nice extension from Thomas and the Special Letter. I am going to say 9. I think this episode definitely has a lot of different things going for it. We get to see a lot of different lovely sets as well. And I think we get to see Percy kind of like in Put Upon Percy, doing a lot of different things. It kind of feels like almost like a soft sequel to that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So, yeah, even though we all had different scores, I think we can all universally agree that it's a good story. And
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good story. It's a memorable story, and it's a story that we can enjoy.
Yes.
And it has got a very memorable accent that won't be copied again. On things being copied, Parry, what is the next episode?
All right, so this is the final story we'll be covering today, and it is... What is it, actually? Whoops.
Buffer Bother.
Buffer Bother. And in this clip here, the Fat Controller is speaking to Bill, Ben, and Mavis, and the 3 engines are soon to become 2.
The Fat Controller had come to inspect his quarry engines. He found that Mavis and Bill were in fine working order.
Unfortunately, Ben, the Fat Controller said, your buffers are damaged. You must report to the engine works immediately for a new set of buffers. Mavis, you will have to work with Bill until Ben returns.
Yes, sir, replied Mavis, and the Fat Controller drove away. Ben was happy. I'm going to get new buffers, he gloated to Bill. Well, I should get new buffers too, Bill complained. We're twins, we do everything together. But you don't need new buffers, Ben teased. You're only getting new buffers because you're clumsy, snorted Bill enviously. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. Will you two stop being grouchy? Mavis scolded. Now, come on, Bill, we've got work to do.
Oh, dear.
The twins are back again with trouble between themselves.
That indeed. I had to laugh a bit when I heard the beginning of that clip because when the Fat Controller greeted them and it had his little like brass ditty there, it just sounded so jarring. It sounded so out of place. It was just, oh dear.
So, Buffer Bother, last episode we're reviewing today, is the 19th episode of the 6th series, written by Ross Hastings with no story by David Mitten.
He wrote it all on his own.
Well, like, I mean, you could say that. Or you could say that the story is by Brian Truman, because this episode has got a lot in common with the previous Series 6 episode that we've already covered.
Oh, you are, of course, referring to Twin Trouble with Donald and Douglas, are you not, Connor?
I am, and that is the one issue I have with this episode. I'll mainly go in on that on the end, but be forewarned, all of you, that I am going to be hitting this episode harsh.
Ooh.
Okay.
As you should.
I'm sorry. Did Carty just say "as you should"?
This one doesn't do it for me. I'm just spoiler alert, but I'm glad someone's gonna be harsh on this one.
Okay, Hey, Carty, you and I will team up on this together.
Oh, I feel a rumble in the jungle coming on.
So, Buffer Bother.
Yes, what can we say about it? Well, we can start with the fact that Bill and Ben have now been separated, and it's Bill and Mavis working in the quarry together. Now, why is Bill working in the quarry with Mavis or vice versa? Because they work in two completely different quarries, do they not?
I have
we've
a
already
theory.
had this. Sorry, I'm sorry. We've already had this argument, haven't we? Way back.
China Clay
Pits
are closed. They were closed in Series 3 after...
They're still closed, yeah.
Still excavating all that landslide away.
It was a massive landslide, man. Like, did you see that cardboard building collapse? Ooh.
Yes, it was extraordinary. Yeah, okay. So let's move on from that bit. Okay, so we've got Bill and Mavis working together, but all Bill can think about is Ben getting his new buffers, and as of such, he's quite distracted to the point where he runs. Okay, if I recall correctly, he at some point runs into a truck too hard, and then a pipe falls into his funnel, and he gets rid of it by sneezing.
Yeah. This episode, it has got some good bits. So it opens again by going, here are the twins. You haven't heard from them in a while. So they exist, they cause trouble, they do everything together, just like some other twins on the island.
Ari and Bert?
Except
Splatter and Dodge? Bash and Dash?
Annie and Clarabelle? But...
No, it's Blister 1 and Blister 2 on the Arsdale Railway.
No. But they've been separated. And, of course... as Bill is there trying to think about anything but Ben's new buffers, he tries to think about trees, birds. It doesn't work. I can relate to that. Those are the good parts of the episode. There's
But
two
not being able to
montage.
think part.
Yeah, not being able to think. I can't think at all.
Ah, right. Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up.
But yeah, he pushes a truck into a building, which causes an old pipe stuck on the ceiling that's been thrown up there and just hasn't come down yet, to slide down right into his funnel, and then he achoo, and it just flies away. It's
Steam pressure.
like, yeah, I get that was steam pressure, but
I'd like to know where the pipe landed once he sneezed it out. They don't address that.
Yeah,
That-
hit a
no.
workman on the head.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking happened.
I don't like that kind of slapstick comedy. It feels almost a bit too a bit too immature, if that makes sense. I understand that this is a kid show and we're meant to have fun with it all, but having something all of a sudden land in the funnel, which is a bit like all of a sudden a pencil just being shoved into your mouth and then you sneeze it out.
This very sequence is the inspiration for All Engines Go.
You know what? I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. But as the episode continues, Bill is continuously being distracted by the trucks who just keep on singing. And eventually he goes, I may not have new buffers, but I know how to biff a truck. And he just runs backwards very fast, hits a truck and falls down into a ditch.
Yeah, just like that other story.
Episode.
Do these two
Series
episodes
6.
have like any, like, other than like the events that occurred, do they have any commonalities?
Well, I mean, yeah, apart from the fact that the protagonists are twins and they've been separated, you know, it's not really the same conflict though, because Donald and Douglas both had an accident, and that's what caused them to stop talking to each other and being separated. Whereas with Ben, it's more, well, Bill and Ben rather, it's more green-eyed jealousy. You know, one gets new buffers and the other one doesn't.
I would feel that it goes further with that, with some of the narration even being the same. Because at the very start of Twin Trouble, it talks about how Donald and Douglas do everything together. And you even mentioned that, Parry, on how that is a difference in every other appearance up to their point of Donald and Douglas. Here with Bill and Ben, it talks about how they do everything together. In fact, even Bill says that they do everything together. And then you have got some falling out between them, whether it is an accident or green-eyed jealousy. You then have one of them exclusively working with one other side character, such as Duck or Mavis, where they both begin to insult and attack them, such as blowing dust all over Mavis or telling Duck the other line. And then through carelessness, both fly back into a ditch on a 3-track layout, just as then the other one arrives to go help them.
No one will notice.
Do you think it might be the same set, except they've just dressed it up differently?
It may be the same set, however, it's got so much different, like, ground layer as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they just lifted the track up and then, you know, changed what was underneath and then changed what was around it and then put the tracks back down.
I'd believe that.
Maybe.
Bim, bam, boom, work done.
I would feel it would be a bit too much hassle to keep the same track layout. Like, maybe just keep the same 3 tracks, sure, but everything else, maybe. It's I dislike that accident. However, I do like some parts of the narration, such as where you find Bill, you'll find Ben. Where you find Ben, you'll find Bill. The bust my buffers, I think you have.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta love the banter though between Bill and Ben. I mean, we heard it in the clip there. That's
and I heard it in Twin Trouble.
oh.
I feel like this was a clear case of, you know, like, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just change the answers a little bit.
Just write it in such a way so that it doesn't look exactly the same. And it's like, okay, I'll just substitute Donald for Bill and Douglas for Ben and Duck for Mavis and, you know, accident for new buffers, and then voila, you've got,
guys, I've got a hit film about a giant lizard attacking a city. Okay? It's brilliant. I call it Deityzilla.
I've got one. It's about a multi-billionaire who decides to start up his own theme park, which has cloned dinosaur DNA they use to bring dinosaurs to life. Let's call it Billy and the Clonosaurus.
I've got another one here about some people that find a magical box with a phone that they can use to travel through time.
That's a great idea, but mine, they use a DeLorean, except dress it up as like a kind of cool futuristic time machine.
But
this episode makes me tired.
Yes. Now, the thing is, I made a reference there because what was the last one that I was talking about? A box with a.
You were
phone
talking
in it that
about Bill
travels
and
through
Ted's
time.
Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
what I thought as well.
I was actually, or Doctor Who.
Depends where you
But-
come from.
This episode was originally going to be called, instead of Buffer Bother, Bill and Ben's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, come on. No,
And-
that's just lazy. Come on.
Well, like, I mean, honestly, I would have loved it if they did that because it is so blatant renaming reference. However, Ben isn't there for over half the episode, so I can see why they got rid of it.
So Bill and Mavis's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many things about this episode. Like, I mean, what even was that pit that Bill fell into? In Twin Trouble, we said it was a burn pit where they burnt old rolling stock. Here, it's a gravel pit, a cinder pit.
It's a floodplain, is what it is.
So
It's a floodplain.
this is where Thomas and the Magic Railroad leans more into the canon, like the world of the island of Sodor. The debris of the world, like as the world is starting to
Okay.
disintegrate and fall apart, the land mass starts to move, and that's like the land moving and melding into the Magic Railroad itself.
You see,
Beautiful.
Carty, I do like on a personal note, Thomas the Magic Railroad. I do like it, but when he does that, then my vengeance for it grows.
You just can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many pop culture references have we made discussing just this story alone?
Well, like, I mean, I've got more if you want.
I think we should get back to the task at hand. So,
Okay.
Buffer Bother, aka Bill and Ben's Excellent Adventure.
Is it?
Look, I think I might be the only one who believes this, but I think this is fun, honestly, and I enjoyed this story quite a bit. And yes, it's a carbon copy of Twin Trouble and this and that, but you know, I would happily watch this story on a loop. If it just happens to be on TV or something like that, I will happily sit down and I will be fixated on what's happening.
No.
It's a humble episode.
I
is what
agree
it
with
is.
you. It is enjoyable and funny, just like how Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure isn't a copy of the idea of Doctor Who. Okay? I agree with you on that fact there, on how this episode is copying from another idea.
Mm-hmm.
And
Within the
they
same
just
universe
make
as
it a
well.
little more, same universe and making it wacky and kooky. That's the thing. What I do really like, though, is the alliteration in this episode. They really lead into it. The Fat Controller says that you've behaved badly, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
As Bill's has his accident. What I don't know about the accident, though, apart from the pit, is why are the front buffers of Bill bent when if his back buffers biffing badly behaved trucks backwards that caused them?
Well, he was biffing the trucks beforehand, and that would have caused them to,
He is a
bend
shunter.
about. Mm-hmm.
Fair, but his bent buffers are the ones that are the ones supposed to be replaced, and we see them, and they're the ones at the front, which means that they were the ones that were supposed to have been damaged. It's weird.
He had a big night.
His hair's a mess. There is one really good thing about this episode, though.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't touched on it because I don't believe many people will realize it. But this is the first episode not to feature any characters from the main cast or the Skarloey Railway engines.
Yes. So none of the mainline engines. No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Mavis works on Thomas's branch line, so maybe.
I mean, this is featured on
Mavis
Thomas's
isn't
branch line.
considered- Yeah. But Mavis isn't considered the integral cast. Mavis isn't the Steam team.
True.
I think that's about that's as much as we could say about it.
I think so. Yeah. Unless Carty, you've got anything more you want to add?
The biggest sin this episode commits in my book is we get to see the brand new buffers, but they are never seen again.
Yeah.
It's such
Okay.
it's such an
Yeah.
inconsequential thing, and in Thomas that happens a lot. But I don't know. In this particular episode, it rubs me the wrong way. It's very lazy, and yeah, I don't know. If the buffers had translated into like later episodes, if there was like a development on that, sure, whatever. But it's
You could totally have like another like extension of that episode where like in a series 7 story or in a later series 6 story, Ben boasts his new buffers and like it becomes a point of difference and they're no longer twins and there's like almost like an identity crisis there.
right. Okay.
One thing that really annoys me about the buffers is that when we saw them previously, they were damaged and broken. He didn't just get new buffers, but he got shiny like brass buffers, which are distinctly different. And then not only do we never see them again, but it's like they went out of the way to make them as obviously there as possible.
Not just any buffers,
Only to
brand
use.
new buffers.
Brand new brass buffers. After Bill and Ben badly behaved, biffing trucks backwards.
Yeah.
So rankings.
Yes.
Rankings.
No, I'm going to go last on this one because I think I'm an outlier here. So
Okay,
yeah.
you're going last. On that, then I'd ask Denham if you could go first.
4.
A 4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay. Listen, it is a fun episode, but there are so many things about it that I feel fall not just short, but short. It's not a close attempt here. It needs a whole new rewrite, maybe copying a much better episode as well.
Ouch.
Twin Trouble was good, but like not my first choice if I want to copy an episode. And like, I mean, even the sets don't change. At least in Twin Trouble, they changed locations. It's you got very predictable dialogue. It's only good thing, I feel, apart from maybe 1 or 2 events, is the character development of Mavis being a more mature older sister character compared to herself in the past. So
Go on.
3.5.
Yeah.
3 point. Oh, okay. Well, Carty.
I'm just gonna say a 2.
Ooh.
This one falls very low on my radar for Series 6. It's not one that I would ever go out of my way to watch, and whenever it does come on the DVD that I forget which DVD this features on, I usually do skip it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't baffle me.
It. No,
Yeah.
it's honestly, it's fun. It's got a lot going for it, and it may be a carbon copy of a certain other story from Series 6, but I enjoy it, and it's still got many qualities.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It is enjoyable, but it is a stretch.
A stretch, you say?
A stretch to enjoy it, I feel.
Okay. Well, I stand by my score. I might even be tempted to, bump it up slightly higher, but I won't.
Bump it up, just like I did with Rusty to the Rescue.
No. I was thinking of a certain other story. This one from Series 2, but we won't get into that right now.
Oh, but I'm afraid that is the end of all the episodes that we are reviewing today.
That it is, but we're not quite done yet because, Carty, I understand there is something very, very big that you've been ever so keen to promote.
Yeah, I'm working on a Wiggles film. Yeah.
Whoa!
Yes!
Whoa! You're coming to Australia to film the Wiggles?
Yes. It's called Get Wiggly With It.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, no, I'm I'm currently in the editing stage of a how do I describe it? A documentary about how Thomas changed a bunch of grown men's lives, which that's putting it not as poetically as it should be, but it's actually a very sincere film about, growing up with Thomas and it never really leaving you and exploring why it never left you. And, people from the show sort of give some input on it and give their takes on what the fandom is and, where's the fandom going. And not only that, but how Thomas has changed not just the fans' lives, but also the people who worked on the show. Like, the people who worked on the show are fans themselves. So technically, you got to see what's going on with them too. It's going to be a cute little documentary. I think I am a little biased, and someone here may or may not be in it. I don't want to give it away though.
Yeah, it's not like it's appeared in teasers or anything.
Never know.
But yes, it's been a project that you first announced all the way back in the 1st of June 2019. So it's been a massive project, and it's international as well. You've got, not only filming in America, but filming in the UK as well, and all over the world.
Yeah, we originally it sort of was focusing on the eastern seaboard of the US here and looking at that group of people, but then I sat down and looked at it and I was like, no, there's a bigger story to tell here. And I realized, the UK fan base is a little different. The Australian fan base is a little different. We need to sort of get everyone's perspective here, because when you think about it, like, fandoms do exist all over the world. You've got Star Wars, Doctor Who, what have you. But I think most people do not expect there to be a worldwide Thomas fandom. And that's the most exciting part, is telling people, like, yes, the people in Australia like it, people in Japan, people in Finland love it. Like, it's everywhere. You can't escape it.
I'm really looking forward to it, because it's something that I feel we've been trying to explore a little bit in the podcast as well. And that is, we are adult Thomas fans, and we're going through each episode one by one, not only reviewing them, but slowly starting to figure out what Thomas has got for us and why we're here recording this podcast.
And I think on that as well is that, like, there's a little bit of exposure from, like, the nonchalant, like, Thomas, like, I guess kind of onlookers who are, I guess, not too familiar with it, I guess, as a fandom. So it's always nice when we hear from those listeners who haven't invested into it as fans, but enjoy the podcast for what it is. So I think hopefully that the documentary does that as well. And I think it will. I think from what I've seen, it's definitely something special.
We are certainly all looking forward to it. Carty, the big question is, when can we expect to see this documentary?
Give me 5 years. No. Listen, so we should have been done way much sooner, than we're at right now. We wanted to do fall, but shooting in Australia has become a little bit more difficult, so it's been hard to get that sort of rolling. I wanted to get the film out by Christmas, because I think it would be a great treat. I feel like it would be bad to end this year on, well, we got All Engines Go. We got that going for us. It's like, no, we need one nice thing this year. And I think this film could be that for Thomas fans.
A Christmas miracle.
It would be a Christmas miracle to get all that footage cut together. But by that time, I don't know. I want to say, we're looking into maybe a spring 2022, like at the latest.
So simply because your spring, our autumn, essentially.
Oh, right. But yeah, because we're in the editing process right now, and there's really not a whole lot left to even shoot. It's just a matter of getting it done. And there's only one editor, and that's me.
Wow, a mammoth undertaking for, as I've written it down, an internationally made feature-length documentary looking at the impact of Thomas the Tank Engine upon the adult fandom. a mammoth undertaking for you to direct and film and edit.
Yeah, you've gone through the whole process, which is beautiful. I can imagine from a filmmaker's and a documentarian's perspective, that's it's quite touching to be a part of that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's been fun.
Yeah. And one last question I have for you, Carty. Once the documentary is released, no doubt there'll be lots of stuff to talk about, lots of stuff that where we are yet to see that we'll be really excited to see. Would you be open to returning to our podcast to talk about the documentary again once it's released?
Absolutely, and hopefully I will have a nice bottle of wine in my hand, and we can all just sit back and celebrate.
Yes.
We'll just open up a little chat room, a lounge, and be like, yes, just come gather around. We're just going to celebrate here to a unlikely documentary.
Beautiful.
Until then, that brings us to the end of another episode of Right on Track. Carty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and stay unlikely.
Carty, if we want to find you on your socials, where can we find you?
You can find me on any social media platform at Carty Cinema. Carty like Cardi B, but spelled with a Y and then the word cinema. And you can also follow An Unlikely Fandom on every platform at Unlikely Fandom.
And if you want to get in contact with us, you can reach out to us on our social media.
Indeed, you can. We've got our Facebook page, which is at Right on Track Thomas Podcast.
You've got our Instagram at TTTE_Right on Track.
And you have a Twitter at On Track Thomas.
You also have our Gmail, rightontrackthomas@gmail.com.
And there's also our official Right on Track website, which is rightontrackthomas.wixsite.com/podcast.
And you can chat to us there whilst you wait for the next episode. And what we'll be talking about next time, Parry?
Okay, so in our next episode of the Right on Track podcast, we'll be talking about the stories Toby Had a Little Lamb, Thomas, Percy and the Squeak, Thomas and the Jet Engine, and we might have a surprise or more lined up for you as well. So
You never
keep
know.
an eye on our socials.
But until that time comes, I've been Denham.
I've been Connor.
Parry.
I've been Connor.
We'll get there one day.
And this has been the Right on Track podcast. Thank you once again, Carty, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Farewell.
Adios, guys.
See you later.